Welcome to your Salt Lake City review. I'm Jason Weigandt. This, of course, brought to you by Troy Lee Designs. Okay, going into Salt Lake City, we were finally ready for the coronation of a new Monster Energy Supercross champion, Jason Anderson. Heck, I already turned in a feature story to Racer X before our deadline a few days ago. I did a big interview with his team manager, Bobby Hewitt, talking about the title that everyone thought was going to happen. Even a first-turn crash really wouldn't upset Anderson that much. He got into one at Indianapolis, and even on a rough and rutted racetrack, he came through for 4th place, which is critical, because if Anderson had finished 4th in Salt Lake City, he was going to wrap up the title no matter what anyone else did. So even when he went down in the first turn, it did not appear that hope or a championship was lost until lap 2, when he was in the mechanics area, getting his front wheel changed out. Now, I know it looks like it takes forever for these mechanics to change a front wheel on a dirt bike. They're not mountain bikes. The front wheels don't come off that easily. It basically took them about 2 minutes, but unfortunately in a Supercross track, that's 2 laps. That's practically an insurmountable gap. Anderson was able to scratch out a few points past a handful of guys. And up front, the worst possible thing was happening for Anderson. The one rider not mathematically eliminated from this championship chase, Marvin Musquin, got around Blake Baggett, took the lead, and took off. This led to a strange situation. Now, we've heard rumors that Anderson and Marvin have a little bit of tension because they're both battling for this championship while training together with Eldon Baker. Eldon, by the way, denies that, says it's been full respect and good all along. But in this situation, it would have been undeniable that if you were in Jason Anderson's camp or a Jason Anderson fan, you were rooting for Eli Tomac to catch Musquin, A, to prevent him from getting maximum points from getting the win, and maybe he was going to take Marvin's head off for revenge from last week's dust-up in Foxborough. But Tomac had a bad start, partially because it was his foot peg that was tangled up in Anderson's front wheel. And then he went down trying to pass Baggett, and then it was over. He was able to climb his way onto the podium, but he was never able to challenge Musquin either by taking points away, taking the win away, or just taking him away like by eliminating him as a human being. So that's it. Marvin has now won 2 in a row. Who knew that last week's controversial pass could now be framed as a championship drive, doing everything he can to salvage every point and keep his hopes alive? Now, the hopes for Musquin are still pretty thin. Anderson still has a 14-point lead. He essentially only needs to finish inside the top 10 next weekend to wrap up this championship. And that would seem easy, except we just had a reminder of how difficult it can sometimes be. So the question now is, will Jason Anderson's broken spokes, the moto gods spokening out, will that ultimately go into Supercross and Motocross lore? Will it join Grant Langston's broken wheel in 2001, Ricky Johnson's broken wheel in 1982 as famous wheel breaks that cost a rider a title? Or was it just a minor bump in the road and something he's going to be able to put behind him and put the championship on ice in Vegas? We'll see. For Jason Anderson, it's going to be a couple of rough days. I feel like he's one of the most relaxed, chill, doesn't care, not bothered by thing guys out there. But no one can stare a disaster like this in the face and not be a little worried over the next 6 days before Vegas. Meanwhile, Marvin Musquin, one way or another, has kept this championship alive. Although if you want a few sleepless nights in the Musquin camp, man, they got to be thinking back to Daytona when Marvin had taken the lead and then crashed and lost valuable points. Had he won that night, it would make this championship truly tense going into Las Vegas. Either way, anything can happen. And we actually know that for a fact. We just saw it. See you next weekend.